यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा 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 जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय श्रील गुरुदेव की जय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Hare Krishna. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, titled General History, Chapter 3, Liberation from Illusory Energy, and we are reading text 29. Evam Krishnatmanadeshu Manusheshu cha sauhrudam Paricharyam chobayatra Mahatsu nushu sadhushu Evam Krishnatmanadeshu Manusheshu cha Sauhrudam Paricharyam Chobhayatra Mahatsu Nrushu Sadhushu Evam Krishnatmanadeshu Manusheshu cha Sauhrudam Paricharyam Chobhayatra Mahatsu Nrushu Sadhushu Evam Krishnatmanadeshu Manusheshu cha Sauhrudam Paricharyam Sobhayatra Manshu Nushu Sadhushu Evam Krishnatmanadeshu Manusheshu cha Sauhrudam Paricharyam Chobhayatra Matsu Nushu Sadhushu Evam Krishnatmanadeshu Manusheshu cha Sauhrudam Paricharyam Chobhayatra Mahatsu Nushu Sadhushu Evam Krishnatmanadeshu Manusheshu cha Sauhrudam Paricharyam Chobhayatra Mahatsu Nushu Sadhushu Evam Krishnatmanadeshu Manusheshu cha Sauhrudam Paricharyam Chobhayatra Mahatsu Nushu Sadhushu Evam Krishnatmanadeshu Manusheshu cha Sauhrudam Paricharyam Chobhayatra Mahatsu Nushu Sadhushu Evam Krishnatmanadeshu Manusheshu cha Sauhrudam Paricharyam Chobhayatra Mahatsu Nushu Sadhushu. Anybody else? Evam thus Krishnatmanadeshu, for those who take Lord Krishna as the Lord of their soul. Manusheshu, humans, cha, and Sauhrudam, friendship. Paricharyam, service, cha, and Ubhayatra, rendered to both moving and non-moving creatures, or the Lord of and his devotees. Mahatsu, especially to the pure devotees of the Lord. Nrushu, to human beings. sadhushu, those who are fixed in saintly behavior. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One who desires his ultimate self-interest should cultivate friendship with those persons who have accepted Krishna as the Lord of their life. One should further develop an attitude of service toward all living beings. One should especially try to help those in the human form of life, and among them, especially those who accept the principles of religious behavior. Among religious persons, one should especially render service to the pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. According to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, the highest duty for devotees of the Supreme Lord is to establish friendship with those who have completely surrendered to Krishna and who have thus achieved Sharanagati, shelter at the Lord's lotus feet. One should render service to both the Lord and His devotees, since the Lord is more pleased by sincere service rendered to His pure devotees. One should not only officially offer respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, His devotees, and His worshipful paraphernalia, but should actually render service to the representatives of the Lord, who are known as Mahabhagavatas. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitamena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Romapada Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharin Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachachya Deshatarini. Namo Mahabodhanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurattushe Namo Namah. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptaganjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. One who desires his ultimate self-interest should cultivate friendship with those persons who have accepted Krishna as the Lord of their life. One should further develop an attitude of service toward all living beings. One should especially try to help those in the human form of life, and among them especially those who accept the principles of religious behavior. Among religious persons, one should especially render service to the pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in this chapter, we are being given instructions on how to liberate from the illusory energy. And just as a background, these are being the set of questions that are posed by Maharaja Nimi, King Nimi, to the Navayogendras. And this is, I believe, fourth question that's being addressed. And of course, the pretext or context to this set of chapters or this set of instructions is actually while Narada visiting Vasudeva, he posed the question of what is the process of performing pure devotional service, or what is the Bhagavata Dharma. And of course, if you if in the context of this verse, actually, if you go back, each of these personalities are exemplifying what is being addressed in this verse. One who desires his ultimate self-interest should cultivate friendship with those persons who have accepted Krishna as the Lord of their life. In this particular case, of course, Vasudeva being the father of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he is exhibiting his humility and also the respect and the friendship that he wants to cultivate with Narada Muni by asking this question about what is the process of performing pure devotional service, or what is the Bhagavata Dharma. I mean, it's not that Vasudeva doesn't know these details, but it's a process. It's a way. It's a path. That's what is being described here, is to cultivate this friendship and this respect by. And one of the qualities that Vasudeva is exhibiting is humility, right? And then how does Narada respond? He responds in the same fashion. He is also, I mean, he knows, of course, Vasudeva's position, but Narada is also, being the great exalted personality, he is also exhibiting humility by saying that, oh, this subject matter was actually already discussed by Navayogendras to King Nimi. And of course, in the current story where we are, King Nimi is also very exalted personality, devotee. I mean, he didn't have to ask any of these questions about what is Bhagavata Dharma. He was already exemplifying that pure devotional service, even though he was the king of the entire earthly planet. But out of humility, when Navayogendras visited him, he was exhibiting his humility by trying to cultivate that relationship with them, by rendering service, by requesting them to elaborate on this process of Bhagavata Dharma. And of course, Navayogendras, understanding that King Nimi is a great personality, great devotee of the Lord, they are also exhibiting humility and answering these questions in a methodical way, so that the entire the population in the future, or the people like us, can actually learn this subject matter. And so the key takeaway from these personalities is you have to, they're like almost competing in terms of the humility. Who can exhibit more humility, kind of thing. So humility is a very important quality in terms of being able to cultivate these friendships with those persons who have accepted Krishna as the Lord of their life. Right? In terms of the service that we do, in Bhagavad Gita, it is described that how we respect, or how we serve our spiritual man. Paripatena pariprashnena sevaya, right? So when you, the service could be various ways. Obviously the devotional service, by hearing from these personalities, these great personalities. That's the one way of doing the service, but also rendering, especially in the last statement, it means among religious persons, one should especially render service to the pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it is our duty and our responsibility to inquire into these subject matters, but also render service to these personalities to gain their mercy, and through which we will be able to actually understand what is this devotional service. In case of Narada Muni, I mean, he explains in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam how he attained the pure devotional service by simply, he was a small 4 or 5-year-old boy. He didn't knew much. The only good fortune he had was because his mother was got the opportunity to serve these visiting Mahatmas. And so by just rendering some menial service to those personalities, and by taking the remnants from those personalities, he was able to attain the pure devotional service. And so in this particular context, we have in the previous, as addressed to in the previous questions by King Nimi to Navayogendras, it's been described on what are the different, what is the highest good. And of course, it was answered that Bhagavata Dharma, or fearlessness, is the highest good. And what are the qualities of this such a practitioner of Bhagavata Dharma? And then they go on in describing in the previous chapter about the different levels of devotees, or different qualifications of devotees, qualities of devotees, Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama Adhikaris. And what are their qualifications, and how they behave, and how they interact, and also it is mentioned in those verses on how we can associate with those personalities, because there is a different way of associating and different way of rendering service to each of those different personalities. It's an appropriate, what is an appropriate way. And also in the current chapter, we have heard about what is the nature and activities of Maya, and basically the answer was given that this Maya, or the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord, makes the jiva wander in this material world, in the samsara. And then the current question is in regards to how to overcome this Maya. And in the previous verses, it has been described how one can render service to a guru or a bona fide spiritual master and perform bhakti, and that is the only way we can actually overcome this illusory energy, which declares a war on anyone trying to perform devotional service. So, and how do we render this service? The question here is that ultimate one who desires his ultimate self-interest. And what is our ultimate self-interest? To become, to attain the pure devotional service, right? And so, what do we do? It's to render service. And how do we render service? Because there are different ways of rendering service. Obviously, in the material world, when you render service, what happens? You are expecting something back. Right? I want this, and I will do this for you. And so is that the kind of service that we are discussing? No. So it should not have any ulterior motive or okay, this is what I need, this is what I want this from this thing. What happens if you have an ulterior motive or some sort of a self-interest other than attaining the pure devotional service? When you perform a service, normally in the material world, somebody performs all these public servants, right? So-called public servants. Yeah, reaction, but also pride develops in them. I'm doing this thing, and then I'm this big shot kind of personality. And what we discussed earlier from this example of these personalities is that's not really what actually gets us out of this illusory energy or puts us on the path of pure devotional service. Humility. And humility and pride are exactly opposite. And so we have to be very careful when we are performing any service, is that we don't get this some sort of ulterior motive. Oh, I am going to get this recognition, or I'm going to get this thing, or I'm going to get that thing, because that's ultimately is going to lead us into pride, and then it's basically a ruination. So how do we protect ourselves from those kind of things? It's very important in the bhakti is the consciousness or attitude of how we are doing anything, any devotional service. Because if our consciousness is, or the attitude, or how we think and how we approach and how we want to do this service is not situated in the proper mood or proper way, then it's going to kind of generate some ulterior motive, and obviously it's going to create pride in us. So we have to develop proper consciousness. And how do we develop proper consciousness, or how do we protect ourselves from this thing? Because sometimes we may not know actually. We may do unknowingly. We may have some ulterior motive. Because we are being in this material world for millennia, and so obviously we have some baggage that we are carrying. So even though we might actually think that we want to do things without any ulterior motive, we might still have something that is unknowingly we might do. And how do we protect from that? Is by association of devotees, by rendering this service to actually in the purport, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur specifically mentions the highest duty for devotees of the Supreme Lord is to establish friendship. So by establishing friendship with those exalted or senior personalities, senior devotees, you are able to actually, they will put you on the right path. They will correct you if you are showing any symptom of your ulterior motive. Prabhu, I'm doing this service, but I hope this thing happens to me. So those personalities will actually put you in your position, one way or the other, I guess, whatever it takes, because they are very merciful. And so they will, the Vaishnavas are there to help us. And so, and also here it's mentioned, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions that the highest duty is friendship with devotees that accepted the Lord as the ultimate goal of life. So obviously, how do we go about doing that? So we have to have the sincere desire first to have that friendship, or to establish that friendship, because obviously our natural tendency is that we want to find faults with every personality that we come across. That's the first thing that we try to see, is that, what is that devotee doing? And so, and that kind of obstructs our path, or our path to establish. Because when we see those faults in other people, then it's naturally we won't be able to kind of connect to those personalities, and naturally we won't be able to establish that friendship that is desired. So it's very important that we have to first develop the sincere desire, and obviously whenever there is a desire, the Lord, being the super soul in us, is going to actually put those personalities in contact with us, and in that friendship mood with us. So it's like ants, right? They obviously, wherever there is sweet, ants get attracted to there. And so same way, when we have the desire, the sincere desire, the devotees will will come and actually approach us so that we can establish those friendships. And and also we need to make sure that we only choose our consciousness to be in the mood of service to those personalities. And how can we serve those personalities? By humbly approaching. Because when we approach these devotees, it is actually, even in Bhagavad Gita, right, in the 18th chapter, the Lord mentions that the devotee, those who are serving my devotees are more dearer to me, right? So by us performing this service to other devotees, we are actually attracting Krishna's mercy. And Krishna is actually, and Krishna will reciprocate that mercy through those devotees by that we are rendering some service to. And obviously there are numerous examples on how Krishna depends not only and also what is Krishna looking in us is how much we are being dependency on those devotees, or those either it's our spiritual master or our diksha, our shiksha guru, or whoever. When we depend, it's like eyatamam prapadyante, right? I mean, however much we depend, or however much we submit ourselves, that's the level of reciprocation that Krishna sends through those personalities. And also it is actually mentioned in the 10th canto of 86th chapter, 52nd verse, on how this association or this rendering of service to the devotees is supreme, or it's the supreme qualification. It says that Deva kshetrani tirthani darshana sparshana chanahai shanai punanti kalena tadapi arhatamaksheya. One can gradually become purified by seeing, touching and worshipping temple deities, places of pilgrimage and holy rivers. But one can attain the same result immediately simply by receiving the glance of exalted sages. So here it is saying that, I mean, we can go on and to all these places, kshetrani, they perform deity, see these different pilgrimage places and worship the deities, and all the art, take bath in all these tirthani, or the rivers, holy rivers. But all that, whatever the spiritual benefit that you can attain from all those activities can be attained by simply receiving the glance of a favorable glance of an exalted personality. And so it is essential in our devotional path, in our devotional service, to actually be able to seek out the mercy or the glance of these personalities. So rather, in the purport, it's mentioned that rather than remaining in seclusion and concentrating on their own perfection, Vaishnava Brahmanas of the highest order dedicate their lives to sharing the benediction of Lord's devotional service. So these personalities are they're actually dedicated themselves to the service of the Supreme Lord, or they took Sharanagati, as in Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's language, shelter at the Lord's lotus feet. And so they are actually, rather than keeping it to themselves, the only reason that they are here among us is because to allow us to get that mercy, to be able to engage in their service. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai, Shri Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Shri Nitai Gauri Chandra Nitai Chaitanya Chandra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, there are many personalities that we see in Bhagavatam as well as in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and even in Srila Prabhupada's life. I mean, Srila Prabhupada was very caring and very nurturing his disciples or the people, whoever he came across. In the case of, because in the rest of the translation or rest of this verse, it says that one should further develop an attitude of service toward all living beings. One should especially try to help those in the human form of life, and among them especially those who accept the principles of religious behavior. So it's not only the pure devotees, but also those that are among ourselves. Of course, Lord Chaitanya being the most Mahavadanyaya, he declared that anybody who chants or who hears actually, right, who hears the holy names of the Lord is a devotee, right? And so, we have the obligation or we have the responsibility to render service to all these personalities. And it, of course, it varies, like I mentioned, on how we render service or how we interact with these different personalities. But it's our responsibility. And Srila Prabhupada exemplified that by providing that proper nurturing and proper care to all the devotees. And of course, nowadays, this whole devotee care is a big buzzword in our Iskcon movement, right? I mean, in terms of how we, of course, there are people who say that, devotee care is, there are those who argue that, it's not, Prabhupada kind of didn't mention in any of, by the word itself, devotee care, but I mean, it's nothing but the Vaishnava Seva that's being mentioned in this verse, in terms of how we should perform service to Vaishnavas, and of course in terms of in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya exemplified that how he rendered service, because he was playing the role of a devotee of the Lord, and so he actually showed us by example on how to perform the devotional service, all the way from who was that when he went to South India, Kurmakshetra, that's the first place he visited, right? There he met this Brahmana, Vasudeva, who was he was suffering from leprosy. But that personality, I mean, he had, as soon as he came across our Lord Chaitanya, he completely surrendered himself. He wanted to perform service to the, Lord Chaitanya. And even though Lord Chaitanya left Kurmakshetra, but the next day he actually walks back all the way to Kurmakshetra just so that he can give the benediction, mercy to Vasudeva. And not only he took care of, provided reciprocated for the devotion, for the service mood of Vasudeva, but also he actually completely cured him of his leprosy, and he instructs him on how he can perform devotional service, even though without having to travel with him, he still can perform his devotional service. And there are so many examples, and I will open the floor in a couple of minutes, and everybody can share their the personalities who exemplified this Vaishnava Seva aspect of it. In the case of in Bhagavatam also, there are so many personalities. By simply performing service, rendering service, simple service to exalted personalities, they were able to get completely liberated from their material, whatever they were desiring or whatever they were aspiring for. In the case of Dhruva Maharaj, I mean, he wanted to sit on his father's lap, and but when he came across Narada Muni, and when he rendered simple by offering obeisances to Narada Muni, he was completely purified. Narada Muni reciprocated in such a way that the whole focus of Dhruva changed completely in terms of what he wanted and what he aspired for. And of course, in case of Prahlad Maharaj, I mean, Lord reciprocated with him for the devotional service that he performed. And at the end, Prahlad Maharaj prays that, "My dear Lord Narasimhadeva, I see that there are so many saintly personalities indeed, but they are only interested in their own deliverance, not caring for the big cities and towns. They go to Himalayas or the forest to meditate with the oaths of silence. They are not interested in delivering others. As for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor fools and rascals. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring them back to shelter at your lotus feet." And this is the same mood that Srila Prabhupada exhibited, and this is the same mood Srila Prabhupada instructs us to by rendering service to the larger living entity and larger set of beings who may not be so fortunate to actually get into or have had the interaction with the pure devotees of the Lord, but as a responsibility we render that service to them, so that through our Sankirtan, through our books, and through our service, we can actually bring them closer to Krishna, and that will attract Krishna for us to show his mercy. And of course, it is and how do we offer this service? There are different personalities and different ways to render service. In Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami instructs us on how to associate with devotees and how to reciprocate with devotees, offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasada, and offering prasada are 6 symptoms of love. So, dadati pratigranati. So he mentions those different aspects of it, and in the following verse in the Nectar of Instruction, it is mentioned on how we interact or how we render this service to the various personalities of the Vaishnavas, right? So it says, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshati chet pranatibhischa bhajantam isham shushrooshaya bhajana vignyam ananyam anya nindadi shunya hrudam ipshita sanga labdhaya. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of the Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So we have to also use our discriminatory power to interact or to render service to these different personalities. Obviously, we have to honor those personalities that are at the Kanishta stage or their neophyte stage, and who is chanting or who is getting attracted to the holy name of the Lord. And one should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And so we have to, I think we discussed in the previous chapter also on how to interact with Madhyabadikari. Basically by these are the personalities who can actually guide us in terms of because the pure devotee is always only sees the good in us, right? I mean, because he is only which is good. I mean, so he's only and he encourages us through that aspect of it. So we should respect. We should fully commit, surrender ourselves to those pure devotees and render service. So that way we can progress. But also we should cultivate our friendships with our peers, right? Our people who are at our level. So because they are the ones who actually help us through our fall downs and through our ups and downs in terms of because those friendships actually provide us the proper direction and proper corrections that's needed in our path to devotion in our devotional service. So by and of course for the pure devotees we have to faithfully serve them and by render service to those personalities with utmost consciousness and proper attitude, so that we get their mercy, and through that we can attract Krishna in our hearts and in our lives. I'm going to stop here and see if I would like to request, since we have so many exalted personalities in this assembly, let us seek out in terms of the personalities that we can that come to our mind, that exemplify this rendering service, are developing, cultivating friendships with those persons who have accepted Krishna as the Supreme Lord in their life, because when we learn about such personalities, the reason of course Srimad Bhagavatam is full of these such personalities. And why we are learning about such personalities? Because by hearing about those personalities, we can also actually imbibe those qualities in our life and in our hearts, and that will purify ourselves and give us the faith to perform that service to those in the footsteps of those personalities. All right. Anybody wants to add, share the personality? I think Shyam Sundar Prabhu.
Before I came, I had a lot of books on the bad I keep, and I just picked up one, and any page comes, so that was very related to what you discuss. It's Krishna's arrangement. So I'm going to read for benefit of all. To maintain that mood, it says, O Gurudev, O spiritual master, please give this servant just one drop of mercy and make me feel lower than a blade of grass. Give me all help. Give me the strength to stay equal-minded in all circumstances and help me to become free from the desire to be worshipped. O Lord and Master, invest me with the power to properly respect all living beings. Only then, by just chanting the holy name in great ecstasy, all my offenses will cease. O Lord and Master, when will this person be blessed with your mercy? I am fallen, devoid of all strength and intelligence. Please make me your loving servant. If I examine myself, I will not find anything valuable. Your mercy is all that I am made of. If you are not merciful to me, I can only weep and will not be able to maintain my life. And it says that humility arises by developing the proper inner attitude. A helpful inspiration may be the following 6 verses spoken by Yamunacharya. So I'm going to read those. O Hari, I have no faith in religious principles, and I have no knowledge of the soul. Furthermore, I have no devotion to your lotus feet. I am utterly destitute, with no idea of the goal of life. In this way, I always cheat myself. You, however, are the deliverer of the fallen, and I am an insignificant fallen soul. Therefore, you are the only goal of my life. Having achieved your lotus feet, I take shelter of you. For you are my eternal Lord, and I am your servant. There is no sin in this world which I have not committed thousands of times. The result of those sinful activities is now beginning to fructify, and they are churning me in this material world. Ocean, O Mukunda, serving no other path, I am crying again and again before you. Punish me as you think fit, because you are the giver of punishment, and you are my Lord. O Ananda, O Hari, I have been drowning in this material ocean since time immemorial. I have been swimming and swimming, but have not found the end of this great and fathomless material ocean. While drowning, I cried out in distress, help, someone rescue me. At that time you came, and as I understood your lotus feet as the shore of this ocean, a seed of hope arose in my heart. O Hari, you are the most compassionate. In me you have certainly found the most appropriate recipient of your mercy. By serving you constantly, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall I engage as your permanent eternal servant and always feel joyful to have such a fitting master? O Hari, being evil-minded and seeing no other refuge, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet. I have now come to know that you are my Lord. You are the Lord of the universe, and I am your eternal servant. When will that day come when I will realize myself as your eternal servant? When will my material desire be completely destroyed so I will spontaneously serve you to your complete satisfaction? O Hari, I am an offender, and therefore I am always punishable. I have all bad qualities, and I am guilty of committing thousands and thousands of offenses. Yamunacharya ki?
Yay. Let's thank you for sharing those wonderful prayers, and actually it's nice to meditate on those. Maybe you can share those things, Prabhu, where are the text of that. It's a wonderful prayer that we can actually meditate, so that humility can develop in our hearts as Yamunacharya has, and we can also offer those wonderful prayers. Anybody else would like to? There are a couple more minutes. Of course, Vishal Prabhu. Oh, he wants to speak.
Should not be the delay. Hare Krishna. So today, okay. So your question was, you want to show examples of who's a friend. There's actually a book called Srila Prabhupada Friend to All, by I think her name is Mulaka Priti Devidasi. So yeah, Prabhupada was a true friend actually. I heard a lecture by Gurudev Tamalkrishna Goswami. He said that one devotee, I can't remember, maybe, I'm not sure who it was, but they said that I have no friends in this world except Srila Prabhupada. That's what he said. Yeah, that's what he felt. He felt in his heart. And I think they said that, what is it? Yeah, people said to Prabhupada that everyone loves you so much. He said, because I love everyone. And he actually meant that, like people say, oh, I'm your well-wisher, this and that, but he's actually the every well-wisher. Like Kesha Bharati Maharaj, when he gives class, he says, His ever-loving divine grace. Ever-loving divine grace. I think Chaitanya Prabhu also says that too. Something similar, his ever-loving divine grace. A lot of people say, like you mentioned Vaishnava care, right? I'm not sure who's in charge of that department, but I don't feel that personally here in this temple. That's my heart right now. I don't feel cared for in this temple. I don't know. That's just what it is. And one devotee told me that, she told me this thing that she said that when Srila Gurudev was here, Tamal was here physically, this temple felt like a mother. And when he left, it feels like a mother-in-law.
Madhava ki jai, Shishi Radha Giridhari ki jai,
Jai.
Shishi Giriraj Govardhan ki
Jai.
jai, Shishi Nitai Gaurachandra Nitai Chaitanya Chandra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai,
Jai.
Gaura Premanande,
Hari
Hari Hari Bol, Grandraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
I think we should really practice what we preach. People talk a lot of stuff. They read the Bhagavatam, they talk a lot of stuff, but when it comes down to real life, though, they act differently, man. So